Welcome to On the Table with Ashley. This is our food and connection series that explores the many ways people create connection through food, from community gardens and classrooms to dinner tables across the world. The series highlights stories of gathering nourishment, memory, and care. Through insightful conversations with experts from all walks of life, the vulnerable conversations shared over dinner, the scents and recipes that carry memories of home, and the grassroots efforts communities make to combat food insecurity and support one another. Through these conversations, we examine how food unites people, preserves culture, conjures memory, and creates identities. Ultimately, the series reveals the profound role food plays in nearly every human experience. This episode is a rerun with our guest, Dr. Hoby Wedler. This episode continues to be one of my favorites. It's really an amazing episode, and Hoby is such a wonderful guest. A brief introduction to Hoby. Hoby Wedler has been blind since birth. He is a chemist, an entrepreneur, a sensory expert, and is driven by his passion for innovative, creative, and insightful thinking. We have an extended bio about Hoby in the show notes, and we will also link the longer version of this episode that we originally recorded. Enjoy.
It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Hoby Wedler to On the Table with Ashley today. Welcome to the podcast, Hoby.
Oh my gosh, Ashley, it's an absolute honor to be with you, and I really appreciate the invitation. Thank you so much.
Well, let's jump in. I always like to start our discussion with a little bit of where you grew up and what kind of kid you were when you were young.
Yeah.
And in your case, and I know that you've been blind since birth, I'm interested in hearing if you were brought up to believe you could do almost anything you put your mind to, or if you had some sense of limitations imposed on you because of your lack of physical sight.
I was a very happy kid. So I grew up in Petaluma, California, and compared to a lot of my friends who are very global and international and all this, I have a very boring trajectory. So I travel a lot now for work, but I was born in Petaluma. I was raised in a house about zero point 0.8 miles from where I live now. And I went out to school at the University of California, Davis, as you mentioned, did my undergraduate and graduate work there from 2005 to 2016, and then boomeranged right back to Petaluma to start my businesses. And for me, the way I would describe my life as a kid is very much enjoyable, very happy. I was raised with my brother, who was 2 years older, who was completely sighted. And what I'll tell you is that I was born totally blind, but my parents had no idea that I was going to be blind. They did all the genetic testing, everything they needed to do to make sure their baby was going to be okay, and everything looked fine. And then I was born on May 30th of 19, and lo and behold, I had no eyesight. They looked at my eyes very quickly and said, "Oh, there's something majorly wrong with Hoby's eyes." Now, my parents, mind you, had not lived with anyone with eyesight. My mom's cousin's husband then was blind and became a real role model for us. But beyond that, they really did not know what blindness meant, how to deal with blindness, and they didn't know any blind people. So it was this amazing experience for me being born into this family. And I'll tell you, they kept the bar high, high, high. And the expectations were right where we'd expect them for anybody. I mean, I was expected to do chores just like my sighted brother. Maybe my chores were a little bit different. One of my chores, which we can get into a little bit later, was cooking soup for the family. And my gift for my 10th birthday was a 42 quart or 10 and a half gallon soup pot, because I would make soups for the family, and we would freeze them and either use them as, great weeknight dinners, or my parents would take them to work with them for lunches. And just a tremendous, tremendous experience for me, being raised in that background and growing up in that background. And yeah, just really incredible to be able to be that kid doing my own artwork, which was making soups. When I realized that my sighted peers were doing their own artwork by drawing, I was doing my own artwork by mixing flavors. And that was just a truly incredible opportunity. Something that a lot of people think of as a true hindrance has become my game-changing advantage in the world.
Absolutely. And I think it's very clear from everything that you've done that it is a gift. You are able to give a gift to sighted people too, and we'll get maybe particularly to sighted people. So we'll get into that as well. Parts of what you do are very connected to your personal story. I mean, even hearing that from a child you were making soup, so you were focused on flavors
Right.
and how they mix together as a very, as a 10-year-old, or I guess you got the gift as when you were 10, so you were probably doing it before. That's
Let's doing,
pretty
yeah,
unusual,
it's different.
but it's not as obvious to me how you ended up pursuing a PhD in organic chemistry. Although I guess, I just recently read, what is that book, Lessons in Chemistry, where they talk about things
Yeah.
in the food. So it does make sense,
Yeah.
it could make sense, but in any
Yeah.
event, I thought it would be helpful if you could tell us about that path,
Yeah.
and then from choosing that as your PhD, how you focused your interests professionally.
Yeah. I could talk for hours about this, so I'll keep it concise, but also very informational. The reason I studied chemistry is because of an amazing high school chemistry teacher. My high school chemistry teacher was the shining light behind the work that I do and really showed me that chemistry is possible. So I had the same instructor for freshman physical science as I did for honors chemistry as a junior. And when I was in her class as a freshman, we did some chemistry work and I just fell in absolute love with chemistry. It was just something, I don't know how to say this, but I had a knack for it. It made sense to me in so many ways that I I decided that at that point as a freshman that I wanted to study honors chemistry as a junior. And I went back to the same instructor and she said, "Yeah, take the test. We'll see how you do." It was this funny thing where I I don't think they expected me to really understand that much chemistry, and then I got the high score on the placement test and it's like, okay, we got to welcome you to honors chem. So I worked with a team to really figure out the right strategy and the right way to make it work. And it was so much fun. We found a great assistant who had taken the class the year before me and was just a really cool ally and amazing person that I could, follow and work with in the laboratory. And it was incredible. It was an amazing opportunity. And, one thing led to another and led to another. And honors chemistry just made sense for me. And, the instructor would often say things to us like, "Hey, chemistry is everything. We eat it, we drink it, we live it, we breathe it." And she would encourage us as a class that, chemistry is something that I would love for all of you to pursue and all of you to think about studying further. And don't just think about chemistry as the prerequisite that you need to take and that you need to study to make life happen, but rather think about it as something that's truly, a career and something that you can delve more into than just the boring, quote unquote, boring prerequisite that you think it is. And I would go to her every day and say, I understand that you think chemistry is something that we all should study. And I actually maybe am one of the only ones in the class who really wants to study it and pursue it and do what you're saying and take it to the next level. How do I do this? And she would say, "Oh, Hoby, chemistry is impractical. Chemistry is not something you want to study. Chemistry doesn't make sense to you." And she said
Yeah.
to me, "Chemistry is something that is very visual and something that is going to be so difficult for you to study, and maybe you don't necessarily want to do this as your career." And I thought, "Oh, but I do. Chemistry is everything to me. It's what I want to study. It's who I am. You said it yourself. We live it, we breathe it, we eat it, we drink it. It's all around us." And I thought, how am I going to convince her that chemistry is the right thing for me? And I remember very vividly the second Wednesday of the second semester. It was a cold January morning. And I went up to her classroom an hour before school started because I know she came in to prep on Wednesdays. And I knew I was going to have a chance to talk to her. And I said, "Lee, I know that you really question my ability to study chemistry. But what I want to tell you is that nobody can see atoms. Chemistry is a cerebral science. And in fact, if you look at the instrumentation that we've created, we've created a great deal of instruments just to use as our eyeballs, whether
Mm-hmm.
they be nuclear magnetic resonance instruments or infrared spectroscopy instruments or ultraviolet spectroscopy instruments. And from that point on, Ashley, it was really incredible because this instructor became not only a supporter, but my biggest ally and someone who just had utmost respect every step of the way and pushed me to my goals and said, I totally respect what you're doing and wanting to study chemistry at UC Davis. And it just was a total supporter. So flash to the scene, I ended up at UC Davis as an undergraduate chemistry major. And I totally believe there's a higher power. I'm not going to say who because I don't know who behind the work that I do. I've always been blessed with amazing folks who help me out every step of the way and who are just always there to support me. And I can't tell you how many times I've been blessed with amazing folks and amazing opportunities. And when I got to Davis, I was totally blessed with the person who was assigned to me and introduced to me to help me with math and chemistry. Now, I fell in love with organic chemistry when I first laid my hands on the subject in my sophomore year as an undergraduate student. And people ask me all the time, why organic chemistry? That's the most sort of convoluted visual subject you could ever possibly study. Why would you be interested in organic chemistry? And what I realized, Ashley, is that for me, I realized this as I got more into organic chemistry, and it took some time, but I realized that I use the same skills that I utilize in organic chemistry to think about the world as I use for my survival as a blind traveler, walking the streets, walking from where I am to the local bus stop, walking to the supermarket, doing whatever I need to do. I literally visualize things in my mind. So I take these images in my mind that are roads connected by intersections. And I said, why don't I just reduce meters and kilometers and miles into nanometers and angstroms and think about chemistry, atoms as they connect on the atomic and molecular level, just like I think about streets coming together in a town, right? So the way that I think about chemistry is no different than the way that I think about how to get from where I'm sitting right now, a quarter of a mile to my local bus stop or a half a mile to the supermarket or wherever. And the streets are the bonds and the ways they intersect are the buildings and intersections of streets. And in chemistry, those intersection points usually happen at atomic centers, right? At nuclei that come together. And for me, it was like, yeah, this makes sense. Now, I decided early on, because probably mainly because of my amazing high school instructor of chemistry, that I wanted to teach chemistry. That was my dream. That was my goal. But I didn't want to teach upper division organic chemistry to, upper division college students. I didn't want to teach graduate classes. The type of chemistry that I wanted to teach was freshman chemistry to graduates or to undergraduate students who are freshmen who just arrive, who I can inspire to really fall in love with whatever their dreams are and inspire to think about whatever it is that they love and really get excited about what they study. I wanted to be the professor at the college or university level who made chemistry truly exciting at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning after a long weekend of partying to a student who thought that chemistry was just this boring subject that they had to get through to do what they truly wanted to do, right? That was my whole dream and desire, was to be the chemistry teacher to make chemistry inspiring. And while I was in graduate school at the University of California, Davis, I had the honor of teaching many general chemistry courses. And I learned two things while I did this. Number one, I totally love teaching. Number two, I learned that my students don't like to speak chemistry. they wanted to see visuals and pictures and little video animations and all this stuff. I created beautiful PowerPoint slides for them to follow my verbiage and the words that I spoke exactly. But it didn't quite make sense for them they didn't quite like to follow my words and the way that I spoke chemistry, because maybe they didn't speak that exact language quite yet. So one thing led to another, and after teaching many graduate courses and many undergraduate courses in chemistry while I was a graduate student, I realized that yes, I totally still want to get my PhD, but I want to utilize my teaching in other areas. And in 2011, I was so honored to have been contacted by Francis Ford Coppola himself and his team, and, he said, "Hey, I got your name through a friend, and I really want to design a wine experience." And I, by the way, had taken wine courses at UC Davis, intro to winemaking, and a couple of graduate courses also on sort of the hardcore biochemistry of wine and related to sensory and how we sort of pair those things together. So for me, one thing led to another, and I realized over time that, my dream, my goal is to teach in terms of wine and food, and
Mm.
use what I love about teaching to teach people about wine and food. And because Francis Ford Coppola knew that I'd done this work, he reached out and he said, "I've done an experience in Asia around food and getting little treats delivered to me under blindfold. And I know we can do better than that at my wineries." And we started this out as a hospitality experience. So we, for general consumers at the winery, we do this every 2 weeks or so. And then eventually the national sales team picked it up. And I was able, because I was a computational chemist as a graduate student, I was able to, and my advisor was very lenient and said, "Do what you want to do, learn what careers are out there for you." And I ended up traveling a lot with Mr. Coppola's team and realized that my passion was for teaching people about food and beverage and explaining food and beverage in different ways and using my chemistry knowledge to, lack of a better word, translate science into flavor and into explainable terms that folks could connect with and understand and sort of delve into. So for me, that's why I got my PhD in chemistry. I was always a food guy, a foodie, but that's kind of what led me into product development. But as I like to say, I have the heart of a teacher, and once a teacher, always a teacher, and I'll never give up.
So you started tasting in the dark when you were actually a graduate student. Are you still working on that program today? And can you
Absolutely.
explain it to people what you do in that program?
Absolutely. So, one of the things I'm most proud of in my career is designing Tasting in the Dark, which is a truly blindfolded experience around food and beverage, where we start out by having, basically everybody blindfolds themselves. And we use our temporary lack of eyesight not as a game or as a gimmick like a lot of dining in the dark experiences do, but rather as a way to focus our attention and home our attention in on unique experiences, on things that maybe we haven't experienced before, and to utilize our hyper focused lens of not having eyesight temporarily to focus on the flavor and aroma of new products that we might be interested in or that I can introduce you to. And, one of the things there was, when we started, was really figuring out how to explain what I taste in products and allow other people to understand it. So we start with basically having folks put the blindfold on, and then we have a deep conversation about the art of food and beverage and the art around whatever we're tasting. And then we go into an experience all around warming up our aromatic vocabularies by smelling different compounds and thinking through what they smell like. I tested this out. I held a red pen up in front of my nephew who's 6 years old. And I said, "Hey, Rito, tell me what color this is." And he said, "Oh, Uncle Hoby, that's obvious. This is red." But then I held a peach up to his nose and didn't let him look at it. And he had a very hard time. He said, "This is fruit." So it's like we're very in tune with our eyesight because we use it so incredibly commonly. But how in tune are we with our other senses, our sense of smell, our sense of taste, or even our sense of touch and our sense of what we hear around us? So this experience is designed to show people what sort of amazing art form we have when it comes to food and beverage. Number two, to really discuss and amplify what we mean when we talk about experiencing things in a new light, when we don't technically have our eyesight to experience them through. And number three, really connecting with products and experiences on a new level. And so once we sort of warm up our aromatic vocabulary with aromas that I build for people, I custom build them to represent and replicate the products that we'll be smelling and tasting in the future. And then we taste through and talk about exactly what we're tasting and what the experience is like. And it's really good for three audiences I've found. It's great for, number one, buyers. So if you're a stakeholder at a brand of any food or beverage, we can do this and have a great time with it. So what I'll say is that, through a combination of things, I built this tasting out, and it's great for three audiences. It's great for folks who, number one, have a food and beverage brand and are either marketing directors or owners of the brand or whatever, and they want to engage with stakeholders in a way that's going to change a product from some entry deep on page 384 of a catalog to something people remember and talk about for months.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, audiences that want a really great offsite for their team and they want to do something fun and engaging, maybe as part of a conference or what have you. And then we can pull this together for them. And number three, it's great for an audience for folks who want to build empathy within a team. So I've expanded this to even beyond food and beverage to really think through, team building. And when people don't have that eye contact and they can't make that connection, how do they talk to one another? How do they connect with one another?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an incredible experience. I've loved the journey of developing it and building it into what it is now. And now is no different. I'm just so honored and excited to have this as part of my repertoire and my bailiwick of what I do.
And do you do any surveys after the fact to see if there are lasting benefits that participants
We do.
enjoy?
Yeah, we do. And everybody says, I've never experienced wine that way. I've never experienced whatever food we're tasting that way. I'm going to remember this forever, and I'm going to remember the products that we tasted. So yes, I mean, the feedback is unanimous, and I feel very blessed to have an experience that people resonate with and truly love so much.
So I had a question about, is there any, I'm sure there are a lot of obstacles that you've faced in the pursuit of your personal and professional
Yeah,
ambitions. And even just hearing about your high school chemistry teacher, and then obviously at both a collegiate and a PhD level, having to work in with objects that sighted people use for specifically for the study, that particular area of study. I could think of, there could be a number of obstacles there, but I don't want to choose one for you. If you could talk about maybe one or two obstacles that you faced and how you overcame them and what you think sighted people can learn from them, I think that
yeah.
would be really helpful.
No, I love it. I love it, Ashley. For me, it's a complex question because while there have been obstacles, I feel like the biggest thing that we have to overcome anything is our brain. And our brain is our organ that can tell us, it's the biggest barrier to success, and it's the biggest opportunity for success if it treats us right and allows us to think about things right. So I have struggled in the past with, in chemistry, I'll talk about chemistry, with not the chemistry itself. That, ironically, maybe has never been the hardest part of studying chemistry. For me, the hardest part of studying chemistry has been getting material from the very visual medium where it's presented into my mind and needing to use great readers and assistants for that, and then getting that material from and what I do, getting my results, basically, for lack of a better word, from my mind back into that visual community. And the way that I've overcome that is by connecting with people and talking to people and really just creating relationships with great people who can be immensely helpful to me as I go through that process, right? Basically, folks who can design figures, folks who can talk to me about what they're doing, and I can work with them to get what I know into the visual world and to get things from the visual world into my head. So it's all collaboration there. And one of the other obstacles that I've faced, so I'm gonna tell a very vulnerable story here, if I may, without mentioning company names, of course. But at one point, just before graduation, I was applying to one of the largest food brands in the world for a job that was given to me, that was sort of offered to me as a translator between their R&D team, their hardcore R&D team, and the marketing and sales team. And what I really wanted to do for them is help them translate some of the stuff that they were doing and that I was helping with a little bit with their R&D team to and the scientific item, topics of discussion to the sales and marketing team. And it was a day and a half long interview. I gave a great talk about my science. I had great meetings with everybody. The only person who I struggled with was the HR director. And she was just very skeptical about having a blind person come to work for them. And about a week and a half later, I got a call saying from the HR director, "You're not qualified for our position. We're just not interested in you. Have a great day." And it was very cold and very direct. And my ally at that company reached out a few days later and said, "Hey, I want to tell you, you were actually perfectly qualified. We all want you to work. The reason you were said to be underqualified was because HR was afraid of the liability you'd cause our company." And to me, it was like, okay, wow. So like, I'm going to cause you a liability. So I said, well, what the heck with it? I'm going to work for myself. And that's one of the big things that prompted me to work with my amazing life partner and now business partner, Justin, to launch the companies that we have now. We have the product development company. We have a marketing company, which is the only blind-owned marketing company in the world that we know of. We've got a couple of companies based on emotional design and one on art and fashion, based out of Italy, by the way. I realized pretty quickly after school, or while I was still in school technically, that I needed to really paint my own picture and start my own company myself in order to thrive, in order to do what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do. Are there obstacles in people being able to fully understand what I can do and my capabilities? Absolutely. They're there for sure. But you overcome them with a positive attitude and by telling yourself that anything's possible. And if you can, in a calm and collected and relaxed way, portray that to others, that's how we win. That's how we
Yeah.
succeed in this world. And yeah, is being blind going to be a lot more work than folks who are sighted? Absolutely. But my parents taught me good work ethic. I'd go to school all day. My brother and I would get home from school. We'd do homework. What would take my sighted brother maybe 2 or 3 hours would take me 4 or 5. And then, especially during the summer, we'd go out and work on the house until it was dark. So my parents, maybe because they wanted to train me and my brother how to have good work ethic, never hired anybody to do anything around the house. So it was all on us. And they were
Mm.
helpful too. And, we did everything together, but everybody had high expectations of each other. And those are some of the ways that I overcame those obstacles. But really, I'll say this again and again and again throughout our show, that I think it's our brains that are our best motivational organ that we have.
I completely agree with that. And I have two teenage boys, and they don't think that I know very much at this point. Hopefully, at some point, they will recognize
They'll come
my life
around.
experience. But I tell them all the time, what you think is what will be. And if you think you're going to have a bad day, guess what? You're probably going to have a bad day. And if you go into a test thinking, I really am going to do well on this test, you have a much better chance. So our brain is extremely powerful. We have to train our brains. And I actually think that that is lifelong work, because we all have ups and downs in our lives and things that make us lose faith in ourselves, whether it's other people losing faith in us or us not
Yeah.
performing to our potential. But it's an up and down. And and we have to work on it all the time. But our brain can be our biggest ally if we do the work.
It's our biggest asset and it's our biggest liability.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
absolutely.
amazing what your brain can do for you if you just let it. You're just thinking about the way that we dream at night, the way that we experience sort of life in a different way when we go to sleep. That's all thanks to the brain. It's kind of an amazing thing. And for me, although my dreams aren't visual, they're very, very tactile and very audio and very sensory. But like, I'm blown away by what my brain teaches me while I'm asleep.
I would like to dive into your perspectives on our senses. I watched your TEDx talk in Sonoma, and you tell a story in that talk about a day you went with some friends to a large field, and they asked you if you wanted them to describe how green the field was and how beautiful the vista was. And you replied that no, you really didn't need them to do that. Green for you was not something that had meaning, but you smelled the field, you heard the birds, you felt the moisture in the air, and you had your own deep experience that had absolutely nothing to do with sight. Could you describe that experience or another experience and how you use your senses and what you think we can learn from that? And I'll just add this, that also in that TEDx talk, you talked about how sighted people rely on their eyesight for 90 to 95% of our sensory input. And
Yeah.
I was both astonished, I guess, and not astonished by that,
Yeah.
because when I think about it, it does make sense to me. So I think that part of it is, and I think you have a big focus in all of your work on getting people to use, and there are other senses in that, like muscles, we have to work them out kind of and constantly use them. And so maybe that's part of this as well. But I thought that was another just fascinating statistic.
Yeah, I'll take it in two parts. I first want to start by just describing what we can take in when we're not focused on eyesight. In that experience on Wilson Hill, precisely here in Sonoma County, where I am right now, that I described, where I was standing, you know, I didn't stop my friends from describing the visuals to me. I always want to know as much as I can about everything. So that includes the way that people perceive the space visually. But I also understood so much non visually, the smell of the air, creating aromatic symphonies of oak and eucalyptus and bay laurel, blending with fresh cut grass and other elements in the air. It created an aromatic symphony that was nothing short of beautiful. The air was thick and cool, and like you said, I could feel the moisture, and my feet sank slightly into the soil. So I took away all this data from the experience, right? All this information, and when I got in the car with my friends and drove away, they were all sighted, by the way. And I explained the experience that I got. They were just so dumbfounded. And their response was, "What? We were looking at it, man. We didn't get it." And I had to say, "No, you didn't get that because you were so busy focused on what your eyes were telling you that you couldn't necessarily focus in on these other senses." So the comment about us using 90 to 95% of our sensory input on eyesight is true because eyesight is easy. I think of the senses in order of least vulnerable to most vulnerable as we go through them. And eyesight is the least vulnerable. You can look up at night and see stars that are light years away. So you're not threatened by the nasty conditions of space and anything that could affect you as you look up at the star and see the night sky, or as you look up and see the sun, or you look up and see the moon, right? You can drive a car with the windows closed. So eyesight is just not very vulnerable. When we hear something, we have to be close enough that we can hear it. So sometimes you might be able to hear music from a mile away. But if I'm talking to you and we're not virtual and we're in person, I need to be close enough to you, probably within 30 or 40 feet, so that I can hear you. Just being close and exposing ourselves is more vulnerable. I think that's why we use our hearing a little less. If we're going to touch something, I just set my hand down on the table that I'm sitting at. We need to be able to make contact with it, tap it, touch it, feel it, right? But then when we get to smell and taste, so when you touch something, you have to be close enough that you can feel it and make it a part of you when you touch it. When we smell something, we're breathing fumes into our body, and we're literally making that vapor a part of us. And when we taste something, we're putting something in our mouth. So we have to trust the source of whatever we're putting in our mouth just so innately and positively, right? That it creates this whole sort of dynamic and interesting thought process about how do we use our senses. And for me, I've learned to use my non-visual senses to absorb the world around me. And I think oftentimes sighted folks, when I explain how I perceive the world, are really surprised and excited by it as well,
Mm-hmm.
because they can see that future perhaps for them too. But that's my story about senses in a nutshell, and how that sort of talk and the blindfolded tastings that I do and all this stuff really ties into everything else that I do.
Well, can you talk a little bit about sensory design, which you describe as the fine line between art and science? And you said in your talk that science fills our toolbox and art is how we use those tools. And you gave one example about the sound of a car door closing in a less expensive versus a luxury car. And because of the sensory experience in the luxury car, it's a very soft close. And in the less expensive car, it's kind of a harsh close, which I think is something people can just, viscerally relate to. That if they think about it, oh yeah, I understand. If I just closed my eyes and I heard a car door closing, I would be able to tell you if it's a luxury car or not.
Right.
And you talk about how non-visual and subconscious sensory data play into our buying decisions. I'm sure this is something that you work on a lot in your professional life. And I thought you could maybe give us an example that you are working on or have worked on, and how you use your expertise to help companies in product development.
Yeah, I truly believe from a design perspective that designers, they're often graphic designers, even industrial designers, use their eyesight so much because, as we talked about a minute ago, it's the main sense that we have, and it's the one that we really know how to use, right? However, there's so much that we can gain from the world if we're not hyper focused on what our eyes are telling us, and we're really focused on what our other senses are telling us. So to me, sensory design is that element of design which is, yes, visual. Yes, things need to look good and they need to be catchy, right? But also, how do they feel? How do they sound? How do they smell? How do they taste, right? So, this is a funny story that I'm going to tell you. I can't say the name of the company that hired us, but a big tech company in Cupertino, California, that makes a certain variety of smartphones and laptops and things like that they need glass surfaces for, whether it be the surface on your smartphone or the trackpad for a laptop, reached out to their glass supplier in 2017 and said, we need a glass that feels more silky. And the glass company said, well, we just produce glass for tech companies and for the construction industry and for the automotive industry and all these things. So they then went and said, okay, we need to get this figured out. We need to get to the bottom of this. And they went ahead and hired a big design firm called IDEO. I don't know if you heard of them,
Mm-hmm.
IDEO.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And IDEO said, well, we're going to try different things with different chefs and different opportunities. And how do we describe glass texture? And then they said, well, we're not hitting the mark quite right, but we know this crazy sensory guy up in the North Bay, and we're going to call him. So they called me, and we ended up doing a tech day with this client where we paired 4 different glass textures with, at one station, fruit, both dried and fresh fruit. At another station, cheese, both hard and soft cheeses, and different textures that the cheese might have on your palate. And at a final sort of way to crown the day off and close everything out, we did a wine tasting for all 700 people that were there, basically pairing wine texture. Some were bubbly, some were red, some were white, with the texture of the glass. And From this deep exploration of texture of glass, we realized that glass texture has really two dimensions. Glass can either be something that is very sticky, where your finger doesn't want to slide, or something that's slick, where your finger slides right across it. Glass can also be either very smooth, where your finger just is effortlessly moving across it. It's almost like a really light, amazing cream cheese, or very rough, almost like an aged Gouda or a Beamster or even an aged cheddar cheese, right? Where you feel a little bit of track to. So after this tech day, the client chose the glass surface that they use in their smartphones. And to this day, to the best of my knowledge, this was 7 years ago, still to this day, they use that glass surface. So that's one example of showing someone, hey, how can all this fit together in a way that makes sense? And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I use my senses, and that's how I use sensory design.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
So, in a recent podcast I was listening to, it's called 10% Happier with Dan Harris. He had Deepak Chopra on as a
Oh
guest.
my gosh.
And Deepak Chopra was talking about consciousness
Yeah.
and the difference between what he called provisional identity and common identity. He explained that the localized I for a localized identity is what he called a bad habit. And he said the localized I or identity is the conditioned mind. At birth, you're given a name, ethnicity, national identity, economic identity. You're cited or you're not cited. All of these things give us a sense of who we are, but his point is it's actually not really who we are.
Yeah.
So he says that the deeper non-localized identity is awareness, and the common human identity is the only real absolute identity in his view. So I, Ashley, or you, Hoby, are provisional identities. And Deepak says that when we stop identifying with the ego, body, mind, and we go back to the real non-localized identity, then, and this is a quote, he says, then I'm free of the judgments that are in the skin encapsulated ego, body, mind. And I listened to this several times, and what it seems to be saying to me is calling out this deeper level of awareness or consciousness. And I couldn't help but wonder if you feel your lack of sight through your eyes brings you closer to this non-localized identity and a deeper state of awareness or consciousness. And I wanted to see if you had any thoughts about that.
That's an incredible question, and to answer it correctly, I need to think about it a little bit and go back and really consider some things that have happened to me. So here's the thing about me happening to be blind, right? I am not my sense. I claim, this is a contention of mine, that my senses are no better than yours, right? My hearing isn't better. My sense of taste isn't better. My sense of smell isn't better. My sense of touch isn't better. However, for my survival as a blind person, to give an example, I've had to really build on and enhance my sense of hearing, because when I walk across a street in a busy area, I need to listen to traffic as a blind person. And when I hear the flow of traffic, I know it's safe to cross in a certain direction, right? So if I'm not using my ears correctly, I'm probably going to get run over and killed. So I need to train my ears more precisely. In terms of my smell and my taste, I wasn't born with a sharper sense of smell than you just because I lack eyesight. But I, in two ways, need my sense of smell to be really good. In one way that's a little bit subconscious, I need it to get around my surroundings. Sometimes in familiar areas, I know that when I smell orange blossoms, I'm near my home because my neighbor has an orange tree. Or if I smell a particular type of food, I'm near the Scandinavian restaurant downtown. I know I'm pretty close, but I use subconsciously, mind you, I use my nose to know where I am. But for professional reasons, I've had to train my palate to be a very good and very astute palate over the past, I'd say, 25 years. Is my palate better than yours? No. I don't think it is. But I think I've worked hard to train it, just like someone who plays guitar might work really hard on practicing the guitar, right? So I feel like my well-trained palate is just the same as someone's amazing expertise in playing music. Could I play guitar? Sure. Could you play guitar? Sure. Do we dedicate our time to learning about it? Not necessarily. But what I'm trying to say here is that my sense of lack of eyesight does not build those skills. However, I'm able to focus on things more intently than others I've been around. Like when I open my window outside, I'm sitting here at my island in my kitchen, and I open my window and it's beautiful. It's the Ides of March. It's March 15th, and the aroma of springtime is pouring in my window. I can smell flowers outside like jasmine. I can smell the grass that was recently cut a few days ago. There's a small element of honey on the air. I don't know where that's coming from. I smell there's a tree that was cut down near us, so I can smell the sort of fresh bark of that tree and the freshness there. So I can focus in on these things. And I truly believe that being blind and living in a sighted world, which is very hard because sight gives us an advantage in understanding the world around us and connecting with the world around us. So without that, I have to focus on things differently. And I'm really good at feeling what my subconscious needs at any given time.
And I just have to imagine that you judge people less quickly than sighted people do. So
So I'm working on a
we,
book called It's Not What It Looks Like. Don't judge a
okay.
book by its cover. Because I feel like so often we judge things by our immediate experience, by what we see, by what we experience, by what we interpret. We can't judge a book by its cover. It's this interesting thing of like, you don't care if a dog is black or brown or gray or white or yellow or whatever, green, whatever the color may be. And one of the things that I think is so exciting about Amatand that you're building is a brand of amazing products and a brand of culture, if you will, that has a feel and an appreciation that allows you. So I'm holding this teacup in my hand right now, right? It's such a beautiful cup because it allows me to experience the world and experience this cup of tea in a way that's very special, but in a way that I'm not constantly reminded of, oh, you've got this great teacup in your hand. It just feels natural. The ceramic is slightly rough and it just holds brilliantly in my hand. So you're creating a brand, in my opinion, that isn't judgy and that shouldn't be judged, if that makes sense.
I love it. Yes. I really believe that when you interact with an object, it can be a very meaningful experience.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can surround ourselves with these objects that are very thoughtfully made, it makes it easier to connect with other people and have those discussions that maybe are not as comfortable
Right.
and not as easy. And we can sort of progress as people.
What's so interesting about what you just said there? I love that. But for me, there's so much power in being thoughtful and intentional in the art and design that we create, because the things that take the most time to produce are the things, in my opinion, that are easiest to enjoy.
Hoby, is there anything that I haven't asked that I should have asked or that you would like to tell our listeners?
The first one is your brain is the thing that is your guiding force. And if you live with an abundance mindset and a mindset of positivity, you can do whatever you want to do. Your brain is the only thing in the way of holding yourself back from your wildest dreams. And it's the only thing in the way of you achieving your wildest dreams. So if you open your mind to whatever the possibilities may become that may arrive at your doorstep, you will be able to do whatever it is you want to do. And there are three things that I always like to share whenever I have the opportunity. Number one, we are not alone in this world. Every one of us is here to work with other people to make great things happen, right? So you're not alone. Number two, you're enough. What you do, as long as you deliver your personal best every opportunity you get, as it doesn't have to be as good as your idols or anyone like that. As long as you deliver your personal best, you are enough. You are doing your part, and you should hold your head high and be proud of that. And number three, every one of us is amazing. There's something that you do that is amazing that people will look up to. So you're not alone. You're enough, and you're amazing. Remember that as you go through life, because it's the power that will make or break any opportunity you have. And it's also the power that will allow us to have the difficult conversations and also maintain the love, trust, and respect in one another that we need to have those chats.
Couldn't agree more. That was beautifully said. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, so my first question is, as we explore in my brand, Amatand, objects can hold a lot of meaning for us. They can tie us to the past, enable us to enjoy the present moment more, or even take us into the future. Can you share an object from your life, whether you still have it or not, that holds a lot of meaning for you, and tell us why?
For me, an object that holds a great deal of value is my calculator that I used to get through my high school career, because it really is what painted my picture and my life and my experience over time, and what got me to where I am now in school. So I still have that talking calculator, and I still use it on my desk whenever I need it. And that is really important to me. The other object that I would say is super cool and important to me is a really wonderful, this is a little bit weird. A few years ago when I was traveling through Italy, I collected a chestnut off the street, and that chestnut gives me luck and courage, and it's in my jacket pocket that I wear every day. And it always sticks with me because it's just something I found on my own that means the world.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thanks.
You share a favorite tradition with us. It could be something from when you were a child with your family or something you do with your partner today.
I'm going to share something really simple and then something really specific. So, Justin and I don't like to eat out much at all because we love cooking, and that's our thing. That's what we do, right? So, for me, the tradition that I love more than anything is getting home from work on a weeknight. Tonight's a good example. And opening a bottle of wine, having a glass of wine together, and cooking an amazing meal together. Very specifically, my grandmother on my father's side of the family would cook an Italian dish called cannelloni, which is a rolled pasta dish, where pasta is essentially rolled around a meat filling, and the dish has a nice bechamel sauce blended with tomato sauce. And my grandmother lived a combination between Acapulco, Mexico, and Colorado Springs, just north of Colorado Springs, Colorado. So she was never quite near me in California. She knew this was my favorite dish, and every time I saw her, the first night we were together, we'd eat this amazing pasta. And she passed away back in 2021, but I will always remember that amazing opportunity eating the pasta
Do you make that dish
all the
today?
time.
Do you plan your meals out or are you more impromptu?
Totally
Like I'm going to
impromptu.
the totally
And you know
impromptu.
what? I shop every day. I do not like this American way of buying a bunch of food for the week and then just not going to the store. 'Cause I don't know what I want tomorrow night. I just don't know.
Well, you're very European. I spent a year in France in
Yes.
college and
Do you speak French?
poorly.
I just got back from Cognac. We're working with a client to bring Cognac into the United States, and just had an amazing 5 days there. And yeah, it is very European. And I have a deep love for Italy and France and Europe in general.
Are you in a phase in your life where you enjoy entertaining in your home? Why or why not?
I love entertaining in my home. I have always loved entertaining in my home because I just love doing my little art form for people and having them appreciate what I do. It's just great fun for me and brings me joy to cook for people. So I love that. I'll tell you a story that was so much fun for me and Justin. During COVID, we bought 4 little tables, little 3 foot by 3 foot tables to fit in our yard, in our back patio. And we would host, I was very careful because I certainly didn't want to lose my sense of smell and taste, right?
Yeah.
And we were very careful and we did all the cooking, but we would invite people over. We would invite up to 4 couples, including ourselves, over for dinner. And we would sit outside and do these dinner parties. And it was just this amazingly rewarding experience for all of us that just I'll never forget.
That's
Oh,
wonderful. So much fun. Do you have 1 or 2 top resources, could be a book or a website or a course that you can recommend to our listeners?
one of my favorite things to do is listen to great cooking shows on the radio or on TV. And The Splendid Table from American Public Radio, American Public Media on National Public Radio is one of my absolute favorite shows. And I loved it so much when Lynn Rossetto Casper was the host. I did an interview with Lynn, and Lynn wrote a book in the late 1990s called The Splendid Table, which is very tied to what you do, all about cooking and amazing recipes from Emilia-Romagna, which is an amazing region of Italy. And that to me is so incredibly special. I also really love Brene Brown, and I love Dare to Lead by Brene. It's just an amazing book.
I haven't read it. I've definitely heard her speak,
It's
but I
worth
haven't read
reading.
it, so I think I'll get it.
Yeah, take a look
Okay.
at it. But also, please look at The Splendid Table. And
Absolutely.
listen to old
I'm in.
episodes with Lynn. She's just incredible. She's so,
Okay.
oh my God. Ashley, I can't tell you enough how important it is to listen to Lynn.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm on it.
yeah. That's awesome.
Okay, last question. What do you do for yourself? Do you have a practice, a focus, a habit, or a daily routine that you adhere to that contributes to your success or just your well-being?
My aunt was a Buddhist minister and did some work under, not directly with Deepak Chopra, but we talked about him earlier. She's definitely worked with him at times. And she ended up just recently, back in December, taking her life after a long battle with ALS, which was a very moving and emotional experience. But what she's taught me in so many ways is the importance of having a daily practice that you can work with every day. And so when I wake up, I meditate for a little while. And I tell myself, what is it that you want to, or I ask myself what I want to accomplish in the day. And I use that to get up and ease into the day. This is not a routine, it's a daily thing, but my special happy place is a park. And it's just a beautiful park with easy to navigate trails. And I'm able to be just at one with nature there every time I go. And I love it immensely. So those 2 things, as much as I can, are what I think contribute to success and to open-mindedness and consciousness and thoughtfulness in so many ways.
Hoby, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been wonderful talking with you. I do feel like I know you, even though I just met you.
Ashley,
And I've learned so much, and I really want your book, so you've got to write it.
I'm going to write it. I'm going to get that done. And it is such a joy to speak with you and such a joy to come together with you and make this happen. I'm honored, and I just want I want everybody to know that don't be a stranger. Reach out to me anytime. My website is hobywedler.com. My email address is Hoby, Hoby, at Hobywedler, HOBYWEDLER.com. Reach out anytime you want. Let's make friends. Let's have fun. And let's make the world a better place by having those challenging but so important conversations.
Let's do it. I look forward to continuing a friendship with you.
I can't wait, Ashley.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
On the Table with Ashley is presented by Amatonde, an elevated, everyday, luxury home and tableware brand with products designed to cultivate connection. You can learn more about Amatonde at ametendre.com or on Instagram at Amatant. By subscribing to our newsletter on the Amatant website, you'll receive updates on new episodes as well as promotions relating to Amatant and Amatant's products. Send us an email at reachoutanytime@amatant.com if you have ideas for guests or series ideas you'd like to pass along. Thanks for listening.